Fallout 76, a game that some would probably like to forget, but some others actually really like the game, and behind Fallout 76 is actually a pretty decently sized fan base. The launch of Fallout 76 was, well, horrible. Many players felt like they'd been scammed when they purchased the game, and it led to Bethesda having to work the additional 2 years with over 500 employees tirelessly working on the game, to be able to fix what some people called their broken mess. Now, the game actually launched almost 5 years ago in 2018, and since then the game has received over 10 content updates, and all of these content updates actually being free to play, which is pretty impressive. Of course, the game certainly isn't shy of microtransactions with its Fallout subscription that you can purchase within the game, which does give you some exclusive perks, but many wouldn't suggest purchasing it since, you know, you are sort of subscribing to an online game that you've already got in a way, and of course you're already having to pay if you're on console for the online multiplayer subscription to be able to play online games, so to pay, you know, another subscription on top of that is probably a bit too much, to be honest. But of course it has had over 10 free content updates since launch, and people would say that the game has definitely improved. In 2023, many would consider Fallout 76 worth playing, and it's actually, you know, a decent game these days with all of these free expansions that the game has received. And since the 2.0 launch in April 2020, they've put a lot of work into the game. Even since then, the open world survival RPG is now, for a lot of people, a loved game. Now, of course, it is worth noting that this game is nothing like Fallout 4. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to Fallout 4, but in a lot of other ways, it's completely different. First of all, Fallout 76 is a multiplayer game. Now, whilst you can play Fallout 76 alone, it is a multiplayer-based game, and in Fallout 4, of course, that is a single-player game, so, you know, that's a pretty big difference in itself. Now, of course, yeah, you can play the game alone, and it can make it a similar experience to Fallout 4 in a way, but it's never going to be exactly like Fallout 4, and we all know that since, obviously, it is online-based, it does require an internet connection, which, you know, Fallout 4 does not. And, of course, in Fallout 4, you actually do get the opportunity to use mods, and you don't get that in Fallout 76 really, since obviously it's an online game. If everyone was to use mods, it just really wouldn't work, and the game would just turn into a complete mess, and already more of a mess than it was at launch, and people really wouldn't want that. So yeah, that is a big difference in itself, that in Fallout 4 you do get to use mods, whilst in Fallout 76 mods are not an option. Now, Fallout 4 did release 3 years before Fallout 76 did. Fallout 4 released in 2015, with 76 releasing in 2018. But graphically, the games are really similar. There really isn't much in terms of graphical capabilities that differs from the two. Even though there's a 3-year release difference, the graphics actually look very similar, and that was another one of the small disappointments from Fallout fans with Fallout 76, is that the graphics of the game weren't really up to the par of some of the other games that released in 2018. After all, in 2018, we didn't just get Fallout 76, we got God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2, two massive open world games that had outstanding graphics, and it's safe to say that Fallout 76 just didn't live up to the expectations of some of the players, and compared to Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, the graphics of Fallout 76 were just nowhere near the graphics of both of those games, and, you know, that left some fans disappointed. For a 2018 game, some people had higher expectations. Now, that isn't to say the graphics are bad. Fallout 4, the graphics are still great, and that game's 3 years older. And for Fallout 76, the graphics are still great as well. They're not bad graphics, it's just, compared to some games, they're not quite as good. Now, of course, Fallout 4 released in 2015, with 76 in 2018, like I mentioned, and those were on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And of course, now we have the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X and S, and of course we still have PC. And when it comes to Fallout 4, we have of course had the confirmation from Bethesda with their 25th Fallout anniversary that there will be a next generation version of Fallout 4 arriving this year in 2023. Since the game is currently in a previous generation version, you can play it on the next generation consoles, but of course you're using the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version of the game. And this does mean that the graphics aren't quite up to the par of some recent games, and of course you aren't getting the optimized faster loading times of the game, and along with that, of course, it is 30 frames per second on PlayStation 5. Now, you may have noticed I didn't mention the Xboxes. That's because on Xbox Series X and S, you of course get the FPS boost feature, and that isn't exclusive to Fallout 4. That's available on Fallout 76 as well, which brings us on to Fallout 76. Fallout 76 released in 2018, meaning it released before the release of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. With it being a newer game, and with it still getting content updates to this day, you would expect it's likely that it would have a next next generation version 3 years, almost 3 years after the release of the next generation consoles. But that isn't the case. Fallout 4, the older game, which is a single player game that necessarily, doesn't need as many content updates, is actually getting the next generation version. Now, that's not to say that Fallout 4 shouldn't get a next generation version. It absolutely shouldn't. It absolutely deserves one. And there's definitely a few issues that should be fixed within Fallout 4. But you would expect Fallout 76 to get one as well. But interestingly, it is yet to be confirmed that there is a Fallout 76 next generation version on the way. Now, it does get the FPS boost feature, like I mentioned, on the Xbox consoles, which makes it a very similar to a next generation experience. You're not quite getting the fastest loading times possible. The graphics could be improved. Of course, you could have ray tracing, and there could even be room for 120 frames per second, but you're still getting 60 frames per second. But on PlayStation 5 is where the game feels outdated for both Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. But we are going to focus on Fallout 76, and yeah, on PlayStation 5, Fallout 76 feels very outdated, considering it's a first-person game, or, mainly first-person game that released in 2018 and still gets content updates and players still play it daily. You would think that, it would be better to have a more playable experience, because 30 frames per second in first person really isn't that great of an experience in 2023, and it's nice to see that Fallout 4, the single-player game, is getting that next-generation update. But I really do think that Fallout 76 should get a next-generation version, and I'm not saying it won't, but, as the months do go by, it just looks more and more unlikely, but I do think it is definitely possible. If Fallout 4 is going to get one, I see no reason Fallout 76 shouldn't get one, unless they were planning to drop support for the game soon, but I think it will still get support until at least 2024, so I find it unlikely that, they wouldn't release a next-generation version for Fallout 76. So yeah, at the moment we really don't know whether it will be the case. Some people have actually asked Bethesda on Twitter if there will be a Fallout 76 next-generation version, particularly when Fallout 76 went free on PlayStation Plus, and of course those on PlayStation 5 got access to the game, and we're a bit disappointed to see that the game's at 30 frames per second. If you're on Xbox, that's not an issue, but over on PlayStation, that's a big issue. And for them to make it free for PlayStation players, of course people were going to raise the question of, well, will this get a next generation update? And people went to Twitter to ask that, and Bethesda actually replied saying, currently there is no news about a next gen upgrade for Fallout 76, but to keep an eye on the Bethesda site for news and updates. So that's not ruling it out, which is interesting. And this is, in 2022, this was in October of 2022, so it's interesting that still since then, there's been no new updates, and people are still asking the question, and they're just replying with the same thing. There is no news or timeline about next-gen upgrades for Fallout 76, but to keep an eye out for announcements. So it's possible that there will be a next-generation version, and with that, I think that it's probably on the cards for Bethesda. I think they possibly planned it out, but haven't really started developing it yet, since after all, they announced the Fallout 4 next-generation version first, before Fallout 76, so they'll probably develop that, and of course they've got Starfield on their hands as well, so they're probably focusing on Fallout 4 next-gen upgrade and the Starfield, of course, and then I think maybe in the second half of 2023, we may get some news about a Fallout 76 next-generation version. Now, of course, that raises the question of, well, what would a next-generation version include? And I think it'll be the exact same as the Fallout 4 next-generation version, which includes higher frame rates, quality features for 4K resolution gameplay, bug fixes, and some bonus content, of course, all with faster loading times for those next-generation consoles. So, to be honest, just one of those classic next-generation upgrades that we see with many games now, and it's a great upgrade for games to get, and I think it really is a nice upgrade to be able to see within Fallout 76. I think it would definitely bring some more players to the game, which, is not a bad thing at all. But I did just want to make this video going over what a Fallout 76 version could look like if it was going to happen, and of course, if one is likely to happen, since at the moment we've had no confirmation whether it will happen or not. So, it'd be nice if we were to get one. So yeah, I just thought I'd make this video going over whether a Fallout 76 next generation update is possible, and if it was going to happen, what we could expect to arrive with that next generation version. Now, I have actually done a video going over the Fallout 4 next generation version and what we can expect to arrive with that. After all, that has actually been confirmed by Bethesda. So if you're interested in watching that, then go ahead and join me over there.